All right, we're about to administer the verbaluse. Do I have your consent?
Acknowledge. You son of a bitch.
You slimy fuck.
You old snake in the grass.
You would use old, wouldn't you, you scaly bastard?
You worthless bastard. You know what you did? You drugged me into this piece of shit train wreck.
I don't like the way you smell. You smell very effeminate.
I don't like that shirt. That is the most effeminate shirt I've ever seen.
This is an effeminate shirt. What are you wearing?
I am so offended by that shirt, I might join a regressive left movement.
You do so.
I might do so.
You're already in one, you hipster.
Don't you start with that bullshit.
Guys. I haven't administered it yet.
Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here with another review. Dalton, what have we got?
Another review of another short story from 10th of December by George Saunders. We're going to review the short story Escape from Spiderhead.
Yes.
Yes. And how it is going to be the highlight of your week and completely ruin your week at the same time.
Oh, it'll ruin you as a person.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anyway,
good things, go.
Good things. This is Saunders at his finest, which I say every time I read Saunders, except of 10th of December. Didn't like that one. This is the most real look into human emotion that you're going to get for a long time. And this is beautiful. This is beautiful, but it absolutely wrecks you, and it's going to stick with you, and it's going to hurt you.
Again, Saunders blends comedy and tears in a way that few authors even think to ask how to do. Again, Saunders has created an incredibly rich and real world inside of a short story.
Yes.
And Amnesty is such a wonderful character.
Because Adrian.
Sure. Go ahead. What are your bad things, you son of a bitch?
Bad things. If you're not prepared for this, this will slap you in the face because you're thrown straight into hard sci-fi. Just out there sci-fi. The chemicals, whatever you want to call them, are kind of hard to distinguish and separate and what does what because there's so much going on in such a short piece. And I do not like the choice to make these people criminals. I don't like it at all.
Okay, we'll talk about that a bit later. It would be easy to give up on this story early on due to confusion because you're thrown so directly into this.
I agree.
Again, if you're not open to eating your vegetables with your dessert at the same time, you're going to start laughing and the meal is over. Saunders makes you laugh and makes you cry, but he does it at the same time.
Yeah.
And finally, this is every George Saunders piece you've ever read.
This is such a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you're having a good time, you're laughing, and somebody just comes up and socks you right in the stomach,
Yeah.
and you lose your air. Some quotes, because I think there are some good ones in here, if I may. Page 49 from this edition.
Please do.
Every utterance, every adjustment of posture bespoke the same thing. We had known each other forever. We're soulmates. Had met and loved in numerous preceding lifetimes and would meet and love in many subsequent lifetimes. Always with the same transcendent, stupefying results. God, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Saunders really has some gems, but he doesn't flaunt them.
No.
And that you have to just go through and one will smack you in the face. It's not just constant.
And oftentimes they're split up with or by dialogue. Oftentimes they are buried inside of paragraphs, not made a paragraph on their own.
And one more, if I may, from page 69. Basically what I was feeling was, every human is born of man and woman. Every human at birth is, or at least has the potential to be, beloved by his, her, mother, father. Thus, every human is worthy of love. As I watched Heather suffer, great tenderness sufficed my body. A tenderness A tenderness hard to distinguish from a sort of vast existential nausea. To wit, why are such beautiful beloved vessels made slaves to so much pain? Heather presented as a bundle of pain receptors.
Yeah, that's good. On 67. Why so protective of Heather, Amnesty said. One would almost think you loved her. No, I said. Do you even know her story? He said. You don't. You legally can't. Does it involve whiskey, gangs, infanticide? I can't say. can I imply somewhat peripherally that her past, violent and sordid, did not exactly include a dog named Lassie and a lot of family talks about the Bible while Grammy sat doing macrame, adjusting her posture because of the quaint fireplace was so sizzling? Can I suggest that, if you knew what I know about Heather's past, making Heather briefly sad, nauseous, and or horrified might not seem like the worst idea in the world? No, I can't.
No wonder you don't like that character so much. It reeks of Adrian. It's beautiful.
And very manipulative. How do you think we're here? I manipulated Dalton into agreeing to be on the internet. And on 72, look, Jeff, these things happen, Abnesti said. This is science. In science, we explore the unknown. It was unknown what 5 minutes on Darkened Flocks would do to Heather. Now we know. The other thing we know, per Valen's assessment of your commentary, is that you really, for sure, do not harbor any residual romantic feelings for Heather. That's a big deal, Jeff. A beacon of hope at a sad time for all. Even as Heather was, so to speak, going down to the sea in her ship, you remain totally unwavering in terms of continuing to not romantically love her. My guess is, Protcom's going to be like, wow, Utica's really leading the pack in terms of providing mind-blowing new data on ED 289/290. Again, Abnesti is just such a great character.
So, do we need to give just a bit of a heads up as to what this one's about? Because I don't think this is widely read, and it is kind of confusing.
If you've got the heads up prepared, go on.
In its simplest form, this is a futuristic look into scientific innovation. Criminals are placed in a form of experiment.
For a bargain plea.
For a bargain plea, where they are injected with chemicals that change them.
They're drugs.
They're drugs. There's a drug that gives you an amazing power of speech. There's a drug that makes you 100% honest. And then there's a drug called Darkened Flocks, which basically is severe depression, everything dark floods over you at once.
Yes.
So
much so that you can become overwhelmingly self-abusive / suicidal.
Absolutely. So the character of Jeff is being placed in an experiment where the drugs are creating a sense of passion and love for women. He is set to sleep with them, and the experiment is to create this romantic, idealistic love that doesn't stick. Once the chemicals are flushed, there's nothing there.
And the opposite, which I'm assuming is for like divorce breakup cases,
Yes.
like what was the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Wonderful movie.
Where people try and wipe individuals from their memory.
So anyway, then there's this drug, Darkened Flocks, and he is given the choice of whether or not he will inject this woman that he just made love to with the Darkened Flocks.
Yes.
And all hell breaks out.
Right.
So, where do you want to start?
I think it's necessary to start with the fact that they are criminals.
Yes.
Why don't you like that?
It's going to be hard to explain. I don't know. Maybe it's just the career path that I'm in, because I do work in law enforcement. It loses some of its beauty to me in the choice that they are criminals. Because if there was a sense of innocence where these people are doing this for, I don't know, maybe money, maybe they're just doing it because they're a little hard up, they're doing this voluntarily, then there's so much more to it. These people are doing this because, well, that's what they got to do, because that's what, this government has told them.
No.
That's
that is
the way
not the
it
case.
feels.
That is not the case.
It doesn't seem as pure to me.
First off, you have to take a step back and say, normally, what types of people are they that end up in incarceration for these types of crimes? They're people on the opposites,
Yes.
on the wrong side of the socioeconomic scale,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So, when you take that into account, there are people who were doing these things probably for money. Mm-hmm. Second off, this is a bargain plea that these people are pleading down. I will plead guilty in order that I may go to this prison as opposed to. Plus, it's not just pleading down. Jeff's mother reportedly in the piece gave up a good deal of her life savings for this.
Yes.
So it is considered the nice treatment. But what are they? They're lab rats.
Oh, they're experiments, yes.
Yes.
They're guinea pigs.
So it is a comment on our future society that, boy, you know what? This whole animal testing thing didn't go well. We had to give that up. We still need somebody. Fuck it, let's throw criminals at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, I will say, from a science fiction standpoint, one of the big keys to science fiction is making things realistic and believable. This is 100% believable that this has been a progression into society where this is acceptable. I could buy into that 100%. So I think that is great. But for some reason, the choice to make them criminals just irked me. And it took away... By the time I was getting towards the end of this, I was so in love with it. When I got hit with that, I'm like, oh, why? Why did it have to be that? I don't know why.
I think that's planted very early, though.
It was at the point where I think it mentioned talking to his mother, because he has a visitation a week with her for like 10 minutes, that it really started to click with me.
Okay.
And they were starting to talk about what crime Heather committed, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. It really took something from the piece. I think it wasn't as pure for some reason to me.
I don't think it's supposed to be pure. I think it's supposed to be a commentary on... Well, the prison's called Spiderhead,
yes.
Right? Why is it called Spiderhead?
Because I believe the layout... Is that what was explained?
On the surface level, sure.
Yes.
What do spiders do? Spiders trap you.
Okay.
Then they insert venom in you.
Okay.
And they slowly eat your insides.
All right.
Right?
That makes sense.
From the outside, they eat your insides.
Yes.
From the outside, this place, the things they're doing to these people, the chemicals they're injecting in you, eat your insides. Darkenflox kills you.
Darkenflox forces you to kill yourself.
Right. Even the love drugs. What happened very early in the story, Jeff is injected with a love drug that makes him fall in love with Heather for 3 bouts of sex.
Yes.
Afterwards, he's thinking about it, and on the emotional human level, it is still sort of depressing to him that just pressing a couple buttons made him fall in love with a woman.
Yes.
And made a woman fall in love with him.
And Jeff is not the only one in the experiment.
Right.
Other men are doing this, other women are doing this. This is a long-term big circle here. There's a chart, a lovely chart.
Yeah, there's even, in fact, boy, I started to write down, I don't think I ever got around to it, but Saunders shows his ass as an Easterner and a Northerner when he talks about Keith being a big Southern drink of water, right? And as a big Southern drink of water, boy, Keith just falls for everything, boy, you know what I'm saying? How'd you know we were part of an experiment? Boy, I was in that room, I never put 2 and 2 together. And that's what Saunders, I want to bring this into it because we talk a lot about interpretations and how you get to those places. By mentioning Keith as a Southerner, Saunders shows that he's a Northerner.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So the things that aren't in the literature are implied into the literature.
Through the author's writing.
Right, and as Keith is noted to be sort of an idiot, we get that Saunders is showing Southerners as idiots, not just Keith, right? Because he could have put Keith in there and not said where he was from, and it would not have said where Jeff was from.
Okay.
Right.
So let's play devil's advocate for a minute here, because this is what we do. Is this a bad concept?
You mean the science fiction in here? Is it bad to...
the overall premise of injecting a human being with a chemical that changes them.
I think it's important also to note that these people have to acknowledge.
Yes, they must give consent. But if you don't give consent, we'll just inject you with a drug that will force you to give consent.
Right. Which is like a
truth serum.
Right, but you have to get permission to inject with that.
Yes. So is this a bad thing? Because at one point in this piece, Saunders, when they're explaining the benefits of this research, they mention war. And what it would be like if at war, everyone stopped killing each other.
And just started making mad monkey love.
Yes. So is this a bad thing?
Well, yeah. And here's what you have to think about. Sure, these people are willing. These people even tried to get to where they're at.
Yes.
But it's the same thing as making 4-year-olds in Honduras stitch your Nikes together.
Okay.
Right? You're taking advantage of someone that does not have something, and you're giving them something a little bit better, sure, but you're going to have to suffer for it. You know what I mean?
is this already happening in some form?
You know, I haven't looked into it. I'm sure it is. I mean, this is testing on animals.
Yes.
Right?
Well, not only testing on animals, but as soon as you are done testing, you move into human trials.
Yeah.
So this is, hey, we're going to pay you for a 3-night sleep study at our resort. So that's happening, I think so.
Which, by the way, there's advertisements around here all the time for these studies.
Yeah.
Would you like to participate?
Yes.
And there's one that's, do you partake in the consumption of pills? Pills. And would you like to cooperate with this study? And I've thought about, I don't take any pills, but sure, I'll say I do.
Why not? Why not? I need the money.
I could use some of this cash.
Now,
3-night stay, that's nothing to me.
so the human trial thing's very realistic, but look at the level of pharmaceuticals, especially within the last, I'd say, 10, 20 years. If you got a problem, we can fix it.
Not only that, but what are these drugs meant to do? Like these aren't cure your asthma drugs.
No, this isn't cure your asthma. This is this changes you,
right,
but only for a brief period of time.
It changes you, but it changes you in an almost cosmetic fashion.
Yes.
Right? Without cosmetic surgery, because part of it was that Jeff and Heather and I can't remember the other woman's name right now, all rated each other as like a 5.
Yeah. Yeah, all right.
Until they took the drugs, and they were 11s.
It's beautiful.
Right?
The most beautiful woman I've ever seen. So I think there's a lot of truth in here, and I think this is commenting on a lot of things, but it's doing so in such a subtle manner, through the science fiction, through the humor, that you don't really get hit over the head with that until you sit down and think about it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that George Saunders is so good at. A lot of his stories really deal with heavy-hitting things when you think about them. But damn it, they're funny.
They are funny. There's
Right?
a lot of humor in here. Now, in the end, after witnessing, it is Heather, I am correct?
Yes.
Who was injected with the Darkenflox, kill herself.
Yes.
Jeff realizes that he will be injected with the Darkenflox next. He doesn't give consent, and they say, basically, that's fine. We have something that will make you give consent, and we'll give you that instead. And he chooses, through a series of stunts, basically, to take his own life rather than allow the Darkenflox to seep in. And
No. No, the other woman was going to be given Darkenflox, and he was going to have to sit there through that.
Okay.
Instead, he injected himself with Darkenflox.
Yes, and then took himself out.
Right, which made him take himself out.
Now, the final few lines of his death, I think, are the true, beautiful final touches to this. If I may, the last paragraph.
Please do.
From across the woods, as if by common accord, birds left their trees and darted upward. I joined them, flew among them. They did not recognize me as something apart from them, and I was happy. So happy because for the first time in years, and forevermore, I had not killed and never would. So this is the most humanistic ending, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is taking himself out for the betterment.
So, and the terrible irony here that Jeff might not be smart enough to put together is that now 5 more people have to go through it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not going to end after them. There's going to be more trials. There's going to be more. But he is going to not only take himself out of that, but he's going to take out his guilt and his association with it.
And the one woman remaining alive that he loved for that period of time, because there's no way that they would make her partake in that second experiment.
Correct.
But you read that final paragraph there. What to you is the telling piece there? Because for me, it is that I joined them, the birds, flew among them. They did not recognize me as something apart from them. That's the payoff for me.
Yeah.
Saying that we're all equal.
Okay.
And because the story is very much about being regimented, being separated, I mean.
And if you look at it, this is a very rigid industrial complex that they're in.
Yes.
And this is the first hint of nature they get is the birds across the street.
Besides the mention of spider.
Besides the mention of spider, of course, which is, now they're not talking legitimately about spiders. The name of the building is Spiderhead.
But it is a nature reference.
But no, that is beautiful. It's the first nature. It's that man going back to Earth. Is when he sees the birds and he takes off in flight.
Yes.
What else would you like to say about this?
Is there a connection between language and love / language and sex?
It's
Because every time they are injected with the drug to make them have sex, they are injected with the language drug
enhancer.
that makes them fall in love,
Yes.
right? Otherwise, it might just be lust going on. And they are then subsequently injected with the language drug again to say how they felt about the other person.
Well, communication is a major part of any relationship whatsoever. So there is that baseline thought that language is representative of love. But if you look at poetry, if you look at what we talk about on this channel, this is beautiful, this is beauty, this is art, this is love, this is passion. It all comes from language. And being two men with literary degrees, by God, I'd like to say so. I hope that's the case, so that's just how it's going to work. Your move.
I think that is very much the implication that George Saunders is making here, is that the ability not only to communicate, but to communicate beautifully,
Yes.
is something that is sexually desirable.
Okay.
And I think that almost evolutionarily, this plays out, right?
All right.
You have to look, why do we have the ability to speak? Because some at one point started going, Maba.
Yeah.
And the ladies decided, you know what, this communication thing.
It's not bad.
He was able to say Maba, and it got him more food.
But if you look at things, that's really the separation. That's what creates a human. Because if you look at the whole, the sexual relationships and whatnot, from an animalistic point of view, there is not passion, there is not love, there is nothing along that. It's just sex for the purpose of reproduction and evolution. But when you look at humans, who have developed this use of language and can communicate, that's where you start to fall into passion and lust and love and all these other little tidbits that make up humanity.
And consent.
And consent.
Much of the sex in the animal world is more or less rape, right?
Yes, non-consensual.
Right. So the ability to express these ideas is where you get the ability to take things further.
I think so, yes.
Right.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. There's, I don't know, I've just recently been introduced to Saunders.
Yeah.
Simplica Girl Diaries, which we reviewed, I loved. 10th of December, wasn't crazy about. This one, I think I enjoy even more.
And I think that if you went back and you read 10th of December again,
Maybe there's more to
with a
it?
palette of Saunders, because
Okay.
the first Saunders I read, I really wasn't sure what to make of. And then I go back and read it again, and it's like, you know what, it's all in there. It's all in there. I will say that Saunders, one of my 3 bad things with this was that this is every Saunders you've ever read. It is true and it is untrue. Saunders has developed as he's gone along. When you read something like In Persuasion Nation, it's not where this is.
Okay.
So that's something that is really astounding, is that someone at this level has been able to continue to make strides and get deeper, get better. And he's apparently writing a novel now.
Really?
Yeah, that's where he's going. I think it's going to be released this year. So the year that Chuck Palahniuk goes to short stories, George Saunders goes to novels. So
That's wonderful, actually. That's
It's interesting.
Really exciting.
It's interesting.
And I hope it goes well, because sometimes they don't make the transition.
right.
So I would like to hope Saunders has this in the bag. But I'm sitting here and just looking at the quote Jennifer Egan on the cover. Subversive, hilarious, and emotionally piercing.
Right.
That sums up Saunders.
Well, if you want to know something extremely interesting about Saunders, one of the quotes in the front of the book is from David Foster Wallace.
Okay.
Right. So that's a stamp of approval from the past. But yeah, he's one of these writers that once you give in to being able to be persuaded by the writing, baby, that's it.
Yes. And I think Saunders is going to go down for this movement generation era of writers, one of the good. One of the greats.
Absolutely.
So,
And small, quick story about him. I think he went to Syracuse.
okay.
And his professors accepted him just to see what they could do with him, because he submitted his writing, and there was, I guess, a debate about letting him into the program or not. And they said, you know,
Why not?
Let's see what we can do with this guy. And what happened?
So, if you like 10th of December, what should you read next?
If you like 10th of December, I think with the elements at play and with the absurdity going on and with the science fiction element, I think you should read A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Now, originally, I had said I really thought Lullaby by Chuck Palahniuk.
Okay.
Because there's fantastical elements and there's humor and dark humor. But boy, just sitting here talking about it, I realized how much Aldous Huxley could play into this.
I struggled with coming up with a recommendation for this.
Yeah.
And A Brave New World did cross my mind, but I have not read it. So I think that's a good recommendation. I give you that one. I will say, if this is your first Saunder with Saunders, maybe you should go Simply Good Girl Diaries.
Look at you go.
I've been saving that for weeks, actually. It's been in the back there, just waiting for this moment. I think you should definitely go Simply Good Girl Diaries, and you should explore more of this man. I enjoy him. I know that's my cop-out answer anytime we recommend something, is read more by the author. But I think that's worthy here. Now, what would you rate this?
You know, I have to. I would give this 93 Darkened Fluxes out of 100 because it's. Boy, you can't let Saunders fall out of that A range.
No.
You just can't. But when I'm reading this, I don't see it as a 98. I don't see it as a 99.
I wanted it to be a 98 or a 99. I do. And I think I enjoyed it so much that I want to say it's 98 or 99, but it is lacking certain elements. So I think 93 is comfortable. That sounds good. It's wonderful. It's a great piece. It should be read. It's good literature, but it's not flawless. I've yet to find that flawless 100.
Yeah.
One day.
And here's, I think, what stops it from being any higher is that it is not necessarily transcendent.
Okay.
Right? It is very good and it is very now every time you read it. Every time you read it, it makes you feel different about the now. I don't know that it transcends into making you feel different about life in general.
I like it. Good answer. So if you like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and let us know in the comments what you think about Saunders. We keep trying to get a lot of people on Saunders, so hopefully somebody's following along with us here.
Don't forget to hit the like button because it lets us sleep easier at night when we know you like us.
If you do more than this YouTube thing, we do social media occasionally.
Yeah.
So make sure you follow us on Twitter at StripCover and on Facebook at StripCoverLit.
Do we have an Instagram?
We have an Instagram. We do. We occasionally post pictures to it.
What is it?
StripCoverLit.
How instant is this gram?
It's very instant.
Okay.
It's wonderful.